My parents have a lot of kids. They always wanted a big family and were not prepared for how hard that would be. I'm 17-year-old, male 17, the oldest of 10, and my parents have relied on me for so long that I don't remember a time where I wasn't treated like a third adult in the house. My siblings range from 15 down to 4. My parents are still technically able to have more kids too because neither are 40 yet, and it scares me, I won't lie. We already struggle so much with 10 of us, and I know it would be worse if they added more, especially when I'm so close to moving out. In our house, we have a boys' room, a girls' room, and our parents' bedroom. We basically all sleep on these tiny bunk beds in order to fit everyone in. Nobody gets brand new clothes. It's all thrift store for me and the oldest of my sisters, and our younger brothers and sisters get our hand-me-downs. It was expected I would step up by the time I was 5. I had to make mine and my siblings' beds, had to tidy up after younger siblings, had to stop my younger siblings from climbing onto things, and I was also expected to clean the floors. Over time, more chores were added to my list. Helping to cook, babysitting, even when I was too young really. Helping with homework, holding siblings' hands when we went grocery shopping so they wouldn't run off. Cleaning the bathrooms, cleaning both boys' and girls' bedrooms. Tidying up if we were having guests, especially if anyone had friends over. My siblings weren't really given chores, and I was basically doing just as much as my parents around the house. My siblings rely on me for too much, from driving them places to picking them up from places to giving them permission for stuff. My parents let me give permission where I know they would. They expect me to buy them stuff. They come to me more than our parents, and sometimes come to me after our parents if they don't like what our parents said. They get pissy whenever I try to get them to help out, and our parents won't back me up, so they have never done any kind of chore or helped out at all. They get so mad when I ask. They say I'm not mom and dad, but then they also won't go to mom and dad for this most of the time. Now for an update, my parents started freaking out because I'll be 18 in October, and they know I plan to move out. I also work part-time, and that gets relied on to help financially. In between that and all I do around the house, it finally dawned on my parents I won't be around in a few more months. They started word vomiting all this on me, and I told them they need to learn to live without me because it's not my job to be the third adult in the house anymore. They told me I'll still be a part of the family, and I can't just abandon them. I said I will not support the household after I turn 18 because it won't be my job. Am I the jerk? Now for a few comments before the update, comment 1, not the idiot. You sound like the Duggars. This really sucks, and I'm sorry that you're in this situation. I'm going to go out on a limb and assume I can blame Jesus. Your goal is independence. Once you are 18, you can be done. And please wait to get married and have kids. Birth control is not sinful. Timing intimacy to ovulation does not work. It is not a valid form of birth control. People can still get pregnant that way. My grandma had 7 kids that way. Please do not trap yourself by having babies soon, and do not let your parents tell you that you are hurting your siblings by leaving. That is not true. They hurt your siblings by creating people that they couldn't take care of. In the end, the second oldest is going to have to help out or rebel. This is no longer your problem. Comment 2. I said I will not support the household after I turn 18 because it won't be my job. It's already not your job. I'm so sorry that your parents have taught you otherwise. OP, please prepare yourself for your siblings not to understand and to resent you when you first go. They will come to understand in time, and possibly even to appreciate how much you did for them. But in the immediate aftermath of your departure, all they will know is chaos, one less parental figure, and whatever your parents choose to tell them. And the eldest ones will resent being expected to step up in your absence. These are not reasons not to go, just feelings to prepare for experiencing. Get out, OP, and good luck. Not the idiot now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading my last post. So things have been pretty intense these past 2 weeks. My parents have been in full-on panic mode about me moving out. They sat me down and tried to guilt trip me into staying, saying stuff like, "You can't just leave your family behind, and we need you here." I stood my ground and told them that I need to live my own life and that they need to figure out how to manage without me. They didn't take it well, and the atmosphere at home has been super tense. One of the biggest issues that came up was money. My part-time job has been a crucial part of our household income, and my parents are worried about how they'll make ends meet without it. They asked if I could at least keep contributing financially after I move out. I told them that I need to save for my own future and that I can't keep supporting them. This led to a huge argument, and my dad even threatened to cut me off completely if I didn't help out. I called his bluff, but it left a bad taste in my mouth. In the middle of all this, my younger siblings have been acting out more than usual. I think they're picking up on the tension and uncertainty. My 15-year-old brother, who usually keeps to himself, started skipping school and hanging out with a sketchy crowd. I tried talking to him, but he just shrugged me off and said, "Why do you care? You're leaving anyway." That hurt more than I expected. My 13-year-old sister has been more clingy, constantly asking if I'll still visit and help her with her homework. I assured her that I'll still be around, but I can't be their crutch forever. Then came the risk that could either make or break everything. My parents decided to take out a loan to cover the financial gap my leaving would create. They didn't consult me or even give me a heads up. I found out when I overheard them talking about it late one night. They were banking on the idea that I'd feel guilty and come back to help them pay it off. When I confronted them, they admitted it and said they were desperate. I was furious. I told them that taking out a loan without a solid plan to pay it back was reckless and that they were putting the whole family at risk. They just looked at me like I was the one being unreasonable. The fallout from this decision was immediate. The loan got approved, but the interest rate was sky high because of their poor credit. My parents started cutting corners to make the initial payments, which meant even less food and more stress for everyone. My siblings noticed the changes and started asking questions. My parents told them it was just a temporary setback, but I knew better. The financial strain was already showing, and it was only going to get worse. In the midst of all this chaos, I had a heart-to-heart with my mom. She broke down and admitted that she never wanted this many kids, but felt pressured by my dad and their religious beliefs. She said she felt trapped and overwhelmed, but didn't know how to change things. This was a side of her I'd never seen before, and it made me realize how much she was struggling too. It didn't excuse their actions, but it gave me some perspective. I also found out some things about my dad that I hadn't known before. Apparently, he had a gambling problem a few years back that he managed to hide from us. He'd racked up a significant amount of debt, which explains some of our financial struggles. My mom had bailed him out, but it had strained their relationship. Knowing this made me even more determined to break free from the cycle of dependency and poor decisions. Despite everything, I tried to keep some semblance of normalcy for my siblings. I took them to the park, helped with their homework, and tried to be there for them emotionally. But it was hard when I knew that my leaving would make their lives even more difficult. I felt torn between my own needs and my responsibility to them. The final straw came when my parents sat me down again and asked if I could delay my move-out date by a few months to help them get back on their feet. They promised they'd start looking for other solutions and that this was just a temporary measure. I was tempted to agree, but then I remembered all the broken promises and empty assurances from the past. I told them no, that I needed to stick to my plan and move out when I turned 18. They were devastated, and the guilt was almost too much to bear. But before I tell you what happened next, let me give you some background on why this decision was so hard for me. Growing up, I always felt like I had to be the responsible one because my parents were so overwhelmed. My dad worked long hours and my mom was always busy with the younger kids. I remember one time when I was about 10, my mom had a breakdown because she couldn't handle the stress. I ended up taking care of my siblings for a whole week while she recovered. That experience shaped me and made me feel like I had to be the caretaker, no matter what. So when I finally moved out, it was a mix of relief and guilt. I found a small apartment with a couple of friends, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I could breathe. But the relief was short-lived. My parents' financial situation continued to deteriorate, and they started missing loan payments. The bank threatened to foreclose on our house, and my siblings were caught in the middle of it all. My 15-year-old brother got into more trouble, and my 13-year-old sister's grades started slipping. I tried to help from a distance, but it wasn't enough. My parents' poor decisions had put us all in a precarious situation, and there was only so much I could do. The guilt of leaving them behind weighed heavily on me, but I knew I couldn't go back. I had to focus on building my own life and breaking free from the cycle of dependency. Thanks for reading. Am I the idiot for uninviting my backstabbing friend from my party after she ditched me for a concert? Back when Taylor Swift's tour tickets were released, my friend Sadie said she would grab us tickets and I'd pay her back. We made concrete plans and I was excited. I've been a fan of Taylor Swift for years but haven't seen her live. I had to sell my Reputation Stadium tour tickets back in the 2010 because my mom was dying and I needed the money to help pay medical bills. I booked a hotel. This past weekend, I was having a little get-together for a bunch of friends, and Sadie was, of course, invited. At some point, she pulled me aside and told me that she had news. She is leaving in September. I was heartbroken. We've been friends for years, and I love spending time with her. I got weepy and hugged her a bunch and said that we needed to get all our thrifting trips in over the summer and hang out as much as we could. Then she broke the news that as a way to bond with her sister before she left, she was going to be taking her to Taylor Swift's tour instead. I didn't know how to react. She stood in front of me and Venmo'd my payment back. She said, "I know you understand. I said that this was a sneaky move and honestly really unkind of her, and I don't understand how or why she would do that to me." She got defensive and said that they were under her name and that she didn't owe me anything. I was like, yes, they are your tickets. Legally, you can do whatever you want. But this is still a really unkind and sneaky thing to do to your friend, knowing that there is no way I will be able to get my own tickets at this point. She just kind of shrugged and said, "Sorry, but I figured you'd understand." I asked her to leave and told her to please not come back for the 4th of July party next week. I said I needed to process this and that I'm really disappointed with her and how she's treated me. This is a girl who I consoled through breakups, job losses, pet losses, etc. She looked shocked and asked if I was serious. She ended up stomping off and leaving and texted me later to tell me that she's around if I want to apologize for making her feel bad about taking her sister on a bonding trip. I'm honestly heartbroken that I'm going to be watching my show on a grainy live stream instead of being there in the stadium with everyone. I was looking forward to this so much. I checked the resale sites and had a sad little cry about it. I am wondering if I am completely wrong to have just uninvited her. Is that too far? If it was in, say, a month or two, I don't think I would have. I just need time. To add, hi everyone and thank you for the responses so far. I just wanted to follow this up by saying that I appreciate the sentiment, but I'm not going to sue her over this. I don't really think that is a normal reaction or something that I would enjoy doing. Please don't hate me. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot, and you don't owe her an apology, she owes you one, as well as any money you lose from canceling the hotel reservation. You paid for a ticket that she specifically bought for you. Sure, it's still in her name, but it was your ticket at that point. I also don't understand how she needs to suddenly bond with her sister before she moves. Is there a huge age difference between them or something, and they've never had time to bond, so she thinks a concert is going to do that? Comment 2. If you had paid her for it, it wasn't hers to give away. She stole it from you. Of course you're going to be angry, and if she's got her head in the sand about that, well, she's either incredibly naive or just plain dumb. Anyone who knows anything about this tour knows that these tickets are super hard to come by and crazy high prices on resale. Frankly, she's lucky you're not suing her for a replacement ticket. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking with me through all this. A lot has happened since my last post. After I uninvited Sadie from the 4th of July party, things got even more complicated. The party itself was a bit of a mess. Without Sadie, the vibe was off and I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. My other friends noticed I was down and kept asking what was wrong, but I didn't want to get into it. I just said I was tired and tried to put on a happy face. A few days later, I got a call from our mutual friend Jenna. She told me that Sadie had been talking about what happened and that she felt really hurt by my reaction. Jenna tried to stay neutral, but it was clear she thought I had overreacted. She suggested that I reach out to Sadie and try to patch things up. I was still so angry and hurt, but I agreed to think about it. Then out of nowhere, I got a message from Sadie's sister. She apologized for the situation and said she had no idea about our plans. She even offered to give me her ticket and let Sadie and I go together. I was touched by her offer, but it just made me feel worse. I didn't want to be the reason Sadie missed out on bonding with her sister, but I also couldn't shake the feeling of being betrayed. I decided to take a few days to clear my head. I went on a solo trip to the beach, hoping the change of scenery would help. While I was there, I got a call from my ex, Mark. We hadn't spoken in years, but he had heard about the situation through the grapevine and wanted to check in. We ended up talking for hours, and it was surprisingly therapeutic. He reminded me of how strong I am and that I deserve better than to be treated like this. When I got back, I decided to confront Sadie. I called her and asked if we could meet up to talk. She agreed, and we met at our favorite coffee shop. The conversation was tense at first, but we eventually started to open up. Sadie admitted that she had been feeling a lot of pressure from her family and that she didn't handle the situation well. She apologized for how she treated me, and I could see she was genuinely sorry. I told her how much her actions had hurt me and that I needed time to process everything. We agreed to take a break from our friendship and give each other some space. It was a difficult decision, but I knew it was the right one. In the meantime, I started focusing on myself. I picked up some new hobbies like painting and yoga and tried to surround myself with positive people. I even reconnected with some old friends I had lost touch with over the years. It felt good to have a support system again. But just when I thought things were starting to look up, I got a call from my boss. Apparently, someone had reported me for being distracted at work, and I was put on probation. I couldn't believe it. I had always been a dedicated employee, and this felt like a slap in the face. I later found out that it was Sadie who had made the report. She claimed she was worried about me, but it felt like another betrayal. I confronted her about it, and she denied any malicious intent. She said she was genuinely concerned and thought I needed help. I didn't know what to believe anymore. Our friendship was in tatters, and I felt like I couldn't trust anyone. As if that wasn't enough, I started getting anonymous messages on social media. They were full of hurtful comments and accusations, and I had no idea who was behind them. It felt like my whole world was falling apart, and I didn't know how to stop it. In the midst of all this chaos, I started reflecting on my past. I thought about my mom and how she always taught me to be strong and resilient. I remembered the sacrifices I made for her, like selling my Taylor Swift tickets to help pay for her medical bills. It made me realize that I had been through worse and come out stronger. I also thought about my friendship with Sadie and how it had changed over the years. We used to be inseparable, but somewhere along the way, things had shifted. I started to see patterns in her behavior that I had ignored before. She had a habit of putting her needs above others and expecting everyone to understand. It was a hard pill to swallow, but it helped me see the situation more clearly. Despite everything, I decided to focus on the positive. I threw myself into my work and started looking for new opportunities. I also began volunteering at a local animal shelter, which brought me a lot of joy and fulfillment. It was a small step, but it helped me regain some sense of control over my life. As for Sadie, we haven't spoken since our last confrontation. I still think about her and the good times we shared. But I know that our friendship may never be the same. It's a painful realization. But it's also a part of growing up and learning to let go. Thank you for reading. Am I the idiot for kicking out my husband's homeless cousin and his anti-vax wife after they invaded my privacy and stole my car? My husband's cousin Chris and his wife Rachel have 3 kids who are 13, 5, and 3 years old, and we've hung out twice since our daughter, who is 7.5 years old, was born. We're not close. Rachel has always been rude to me. Before my husband met me, Rachel had romantic feelings for him and tried to date him. He didn't share the same feelings, and when we became official, Rachel started dating Chris. Chris called asking if they can move in with us because they're homeless. Chris and Rachel missed rent payments, got evicted, and have been couch surfing with their 3 kids for the past month or so. My husband said he would need to talk to me first. My immediate response was no. My husband agreed, although he felt bad. Chris's family had been giving them money to pay their rent, but instead of using it for that purpose, they spent it on other things. Chris works odd construction jobs and doesn't make much. Rachel claims she can't work because of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Chris called back, and my husband apologized, saying we don't have the space. Chris tried to argue that we have 5 bedrooms, but my husband clarified that we have 4, one of which is my office. Chris expressed disappointment and claimed he would have helped us. My husband explained that my work requires a quiet home since I work from home. Chris didn't understand why we assumed their kids couldn't be quiet and took offense. Rachel accused us of having money and a big house, but choosing not to help, implying greed on my part. I lost my temper and told her that her kids are not my responsibility, and I'm not comfortable sharing my home with strangers. It's not our problem that they mismanage their finances, and maybe they should have prioritized paying rent over getting her nails done every week. She responded by saying that I don't understand their struggles because I'm privileged, and raising 3 kids isn't cheap. I retorted that maybe she should get a job and stop using attention deficit hyperactivity disorder as an excuse. They should have thought about their financial situation before having kids, and then I hung up. My husband's phone started ringing with calls from family members. He answered a call from Chris's dad, Paul. Paul wanted to know why we're unwilling to help. I asked him why he and his wife hadn't opened their home since Chris and the grandkids are their family after all. He explained that Chris, Rachel, and the kids stayed with them for a week, but their house is too small, so it didn't work out. I informed him that we aren't close to Chris and Rachel and have no obligation to help them. I suggested that he and his wife should be the ones to reopen their home to their son and grandkids. He claimed that they had already done so, and now it's our turn. I laughed and hung up. So now my husband's family thinks we're cruel and heartless. We also haven't revealed that I'm pregnant, which is another significant reason because they're anti-vax and I don't want to risk exposure. Additionally, I will be going on maternity leave for a year as of January, so we're trying to save up. So am I the jerk? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Chris says he doesn't understand where we get the impression that his kids can't be quiet. Well, the 13-year-old might be okay because they'll be in school most of your workday. But there's no way in hell you can keep kids that are 5 and 3 quiet for 8+ hours 5 days a week. That alone would justify saying no. But the fact that you're pregnant and they're anti-vax just gives you more reason. Plus, as bad as they are with money, they probably would expect you and your husband to buy all the groceries. Not the idiot for having a shiny spine and saying no. Comment 2. Chris called your husband, his cousin, about this and your husband declined him. Your husband then got a call from his uncle and he declined him as well. Why are you and Rachel getting on the call and engaging with each other at all? Why are you jumping on the uncle's call and arguing with him? All you did was escalate the drama. Obviously not the idiot on the decision to not take Chris and his family into your home. But you need to step back and let your husband deal with his family, which he was already doing effectively. Now, for the update. Thanks for reading my last post. Things have gotten even more complicated since then. 3 days ago, my husband and I were having dinner when we heard a knock on the door. To our surprise, it was Chris, Rachel, and their 3 kids standing there with suitcases. They said they had nowhere else to go and begged us to let them stay just for a few days until they could figure something out. My husband looked at me, and I could see the conflict in his eyes. Against my better judgment, I reluctantly agreed to let them stay for 2 nights. The first night was a disaster. The kids were loud and running around the house, making it impossible for me to concentrate on my work. Rachel didn't lift a finger to help with anything, and Chris just sat on the couch watching TV. I was already regretting my decision, but I kept telling myself it was just for 2 nights. The next morning, I woke up to find Rachel in my office rummaging through my desk drawers. When I confronted her, she claimed she was looking for a pen, but I knew she was lying. I felt violated and furious, but I didn't want to cause a scene in front of the kids. Later that day, my husband received a call from his boss, informing him that there was an urgent project that needed his immediate attention. He had to leave for a business trip the next morning and would be gone for 3 days. I was left alone to deal with Chris, Rachel, and their kids. I tried to set some ground rules, but Rachel just rolled her eyes and ignored me. Chris promised to keep the kids quiet, but that promise was broken within minutes. By the second night, I was at my wit's end. The kids had spilled juice on the carpet, broken a vase, and drawn on the walls with crayons. I confronted Chris and Rachel, demanding that they take responsibility for their kids' actions. Rachel snapped at me, saying that I was being unreasonable and that kids will be kids. Chris just shrugged and said he would clean up the mess later. I couldn't believe their audacity. The next morning, I woke up to find that my car was missing. I panicked and called my husband, who suggested I check with Chris. Sure enough, Chris had taken my car without asking to go to a job interview. I was livid. When he returned, I demanded an explanation, but he just brushed it off, saying he didn't think it would be a big deal. I told him that taking someone's car without permission is a huge deal and that he had crossed a line. That evening, I received a call from my doctor with some concerning news about my pregnancy. I needed to go in for an urgent checkup the next day. I was already stressed out, and this news just added to my anxiety. I told Chris and Rachel that they needed to leave immediately, as I couldn't handle the added stress. Rachel accused me of being heartless and said I was kicking them out onto the streets. I stood my ground and insisted they leave. Chris called his dad, Paul, who showed up an hour later to pick them up. Paul gave me a disapproving look and muttered something under his breath about family obligations. I didn't care. I was relieved to see them go. After they left, I broke down in tears. The stress of the past few days had taken a toll on me, and I was worried about my baby. The next day, I went to my doctor's appointment, and thankfully, everything was fine with the pregnancy. However, the doctor advised me to avoid stress as much as possible. I knew I had made the right decision by asking Chris and Rachel to leave, but I couldn't shake the feeling of guilt. My husband called to check on me, and I told him everything that had happened. He was supportive and reassured me that we had done the right thing. In the days that followed, I started to reflect on why I had felt so compelled to help Chris and Rachel in the first place. I realized that a part of me wanted to prove to my husband's family that I wasn't the heartless person they thought I was. But in trying to prove myself, I had put my own well-being and that of my unborn child at risk. I also thought about Rachel's behavior and her past feelings for my husband. It became clear to me that her animosity towards me was rooted in jealousy and resentment. She had never gotten over the fact that my husband chose me over her, and she was taking it out on me. I also remembered a conversation I had with my husband early in our relationship. He had told me about a time when Chris had borrowed a significant amount of money from him and never paid it back. My husband had let it go, but it had always bothered him. This made me realize that Chris had a pattern of taking advantage of people, and I had fallen into the same trap. Looking back, I can see that my mistake was letting them into our home in the first place. I should have trusted my instincts and stood firm in my decision. But what's done is done, and all I can do now is move forward. My husband and I have decided to focus on our own family and not let ourselves be dragged into the drama of his extended family. We have enough on our plate with the upcoming arrival of our baby, and that's where our priorities need to be. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.